graduated from Iowa State University in 1961 with a degree in mechanical engineering. I got a great job with Schlumberger Well Surveying Corporation, headquartered in Houston, Texas. My first assignment was Horton, Texas, a town of 3,000 people. It was an eye-opening experience, to say the least. When I arrived there, it was January of '61, and I rented this fully furnished apartment with everything you need to make life work at the basics, plus it had 2 bedspreads. Well, that's part of the story, because the day I moved into the apartment, Texas went into a deep freeze. Temperatures dropped way down below freezing. None of these buildings in Wharton, Texas, at least as I understood, had any heating devices. There was no heater in this building. And the first night there, I ended up putting on every piece of clothing I could find, wrapped up in the 2 blankets, which simply wasn't enough because it dropped way, way down. All the pipes froze. It was terrible. I ended up on the floor, rolled up in 2 carpets, trying to sleep with warmth. It was kind of a cold first step into my new career as a field engineer. I went to work for Schlumberger. I trained in Wharton for about 6 months, stayed there another 6 months. But I had some experiences that were really important to me. One of the things, when I went through training, I realized that what I was as a field engineer was somebody who went out to a drilling operation where they were drilling down into the earth to discover oil. And at certain points, they'd pull their drill stem out. We would run electronic instruments down in the well, take geophysical measurements, and tell them if they had any oil. It was really kind of an adventurous job. But I had this thought of, wow, I'm going to have access to information to tell me where oil is. And if I do enough of these, I'll know where all kinds of oil is, and I can raise some money and drill my own wells. I can make a fortune with this kind of information. That was very idealistic thinking. And let me tell you why. Because one of the first jobs I went on was a small lease. Some guy raised some money. He had some insider information from some geologists that this location was going to be a producing well if he would drill down to about 15,000 feet. So he contracted with a drilling company. They got down about 15,000 feet, and they called us out to do our surveys. Never forget it. I walked into the trailer where the tool pusher and the guy that leased this land were sitting. The minute I walked in the door, the guy that leased the land, who was having the well drilled, said, "Okay, Schlumberger, you're going to find me some oil, right?" And I said, "We will certainly run surveys that will tell you if you have any oil, and if you do, where that is." He said, "That's not the question I asked." He said, "You're going to find me some oil, right?" And I said, "Well, we'll give you reliable information on the geophysics of this hole." Well, he wasn't satisfied with that. He just kept pushing me, and he became angry because I wouldn't answer his question. What he wanted to hear was, yeah, we're going to find you some oil. Well, I didn't know whether we would or wouldn't. I couldn't answer that question. But he was an uneasy sort of guy. Kept coming out to the truck. We were out there about 6 to 8 hours running these surveys, and he'd come out every once in a while. "What are you finding out, man? What you got down there?" Well, we didn't have any results until we do the mathematics on all these surveys we ran. So finally we did the last survey. I did the mathematical analysis. It was a dry hole. He didn't have anything. There wasn't any oil down there that was producible. I went with my information into the trailer where he was, and he said, "Tell me exactly where that oil is." And I said, "Sir, here are the results. I'll go through the mathematical interpretation of this information. But if you're asking me if you have something, you don't." And he reared back in his chair. He started cussing me out. He said, "What the are you talking about?" He said, "I got my mother's house mortgaged. I got my mother-in-law's house mortgaged to raise the money to drill this hole. And you telling me I ain't got no oil down there? What's wrong with you, boy? He cussed me out, and he said, I don't accept any of this. And I said, well, I can bring my manager out, and he will interpret it for you if you like. He said, no, he said, I'll tell you what I'd like is for you to get your truck off this lease. And I mean right now. Well, I was happy to get out of there. I said, well, first you have to sign the work order here that we did the surveys and you've accepted the data. He said, I ain't signing nothing. What are you talking about, man? I'm not signing this. You didn't tell me what I want to know. And I was flabbergasted. Anyway, we packed up, and as we're driving off, in comes our competition, Wellex. Their truck drives up on the lease. Well, obviously he called them to bring them out because he didn't trust our results. I don't really know what the end result of that whole thing was, but he refused to pay the bill. But here's what I walked away with. How can you know whether you have an oil well before you drill it? How do you know if you got any producible gas before you punch a hole down there to find out? Nobody does. Even with all the geologic knowledge you can accumulate, you don't know until you've drilled the hole. More later.